Hey everybody, it's Moonbo here, and welcome back to Endless Scrap Mechanic. In the last video, we were checking out a mod that added buoyancy physics to Scrap Mechanic. I showed you guys how to make a simple raft using the mod, and we also checked out a beautiful yacht that actually floats on water. So in that video, I asked you guys what did you want to see the most using this new mod in the game, and I think one of the #1 requests was most definitely a seaplane or a float plane. So here we go, guys. Today, we are going to be checking out both of these planes. I didn't know which one to make, so why not make both of them? Back there, you guys can see we have float planes, and right here we are sitting on top of a beautiful seaplane. So these are very interesting planes in the real world. They're planes that can take off and land on water. So of course the difference is back there we have a float plane. Those use kind of like pontoons, and then this one here is a seaplane, which is actually using the entire belly of the plane in the water as opposed to just a couple pontoons. So in this video we're going to be flying them, we're going to be checking it all out, we're going to see what it's like to land and take off from water. I'm really excited, guys, so let's get into it. Alright, so we are going to start off with the smaller float plane, and then we'll move on to the larger seaplane. Now, these were definitely a lot of fun to make. They were slightly more challenging than I was expecting, especially when it came to balancing them and creating the buoyancy that we did need on top of the water. Overall, though, the design of this plane looks absolutely beautiful. It definitely looks like a float plane, and I mean, I've made one in the past before that uses thrusters, so this is just a real treat to be able to revisit a lot of these builds using these amazing mods. So this float plane looks absolutely awesome. We got both of the pontoons back here as well. It's all mounted to the main fuselage and cockpit, and then we can sit right there, guys. And I mean, I've been making some planes now with these mods, so the planes are pretty easy to make. So this was definitely a lot of fun to kind of push the limits of this build. So if we want to get this thing off of the lift, though, of course, the ideal thing to do is to lift it as high as you can to the surface of the water, and then just remove the lift, and there we go. Look at that, guys. It is now going to bob up and down until it finally comes to a rest. So like I mentioned, this was the hardest part, actually getting the buoyancy to stay level. So we can get into the cockpit, though, by going right underneath it. Here you can see there's a little hole. Alright, so we're inside the plane now, and I'm going to mention that making a plane using these mods is pretty easy, especially when it comes to taking off and flying, but it's actually very difficult to make a plane that's floating in the water like this and have it able to take off. So I did have to do some funny things with that, but let's bring up the buttons and switches here, guys. So of course, though, you can press A and D, and that will give you your roll control. 1 and 2 is your pitch. There you go. You can see that that is moving up and down in the back there. 3 is going to give us our forward thrust, but I'll touch on that in a second. And 4 and 5 is actually little tiny propellers. Look at this, guys. I love this. We have little propellers under the water here, and that way we can actually just kind of steer this thing around in the water if we wanted to. So if you press 4, you'll turn left. If you press 5, you'll turn right. And if you press them both at the same time, you're just going to go in a straight line. So taking off with this plane can be extremely difficult. It is a little tricky to get used to because I did have to do some compensation, because if I turn the forward thrust on right now just like this, guys, you guys are going to see what's going to happen just like this. Look at that, guys. The entire thing just kind of starts dipping underwater, and then it starts to really bounce around, and then eventually it will start to fly. There you go. You can see we are kind of getting into the air now. Now I'm just going to stop that, though, and I'm going to show you guys what I did to actually counteract that. So of course, naturally, if the nose is dipping down like that when I turn our forward thrust on, then what I needed to do was be able to pull the tail back down. So what I did was I attached a couple thrusters to W, and if you press it like this, you can see just by quickly tapping it, we're pulling the tail down. Now, of course, we can press and hold it and really, really drive the tail down into the water there. But of course, we don't want to do that. And by the way, just look at that buoyancy physics. I love being able to bounce these things around in the water. But of course, we're going to use that to compensate that forward pull that's happening on the plane. So if we press 3 and we'll tap W, and we'll just kind of do it all together at the same time, and we'll take off and it'll work, right? So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, start pressing W, press 3, press hold. There we go. Look at that, guys. We are now able to just kind of take off right away without having to worry too much about being pulled underwater. Now, this plane, though, is definitely a lot of fun to fly, guys. Look at this. It's very maneuverable. It's quite nimble as well. And sometimes it's a little too responsive, I would say. But look at this, guys. Of course, this is the same world that we are using. Oh, boy. We're using the same world. Oh no, I just crashed into a mountainside. So this is actually going to be a pretty funny opportunity to be able to spawn this plane in some shallow water, because there really isn't a lot of it on this map. But let's see, can we actually move around in here? Alright, let's just kind of push ourselves off into the water. Ah, there you go. Look at that, guys. So I do want to mention, though, that this water buoyancy mod, it just makes like hovering, aka hovering creations, so much easier to make. But let's get back into the air here. Alright, so as I was saying, this is the same map that we were using for the yacht showcase here, and that's because I just wanted a little bit of terrain to be able to see, and of course, flying is way more entertaining than kind of passing by stuff in a boat. Now, look at this, guys. I love being able to use the wing mod here, making such awesome planes. Look at that! Some awesome maneuvers as well, but of course, one of the most challenging things in flying is landing, and let me tell you guys, landing in water is no easier. It's actually probably harder than landing on the actual terrain. Mind you, the Seaplane is really good for it, which we'll be checking out in a moment here. So, let's just kind of maybe do a couple little aerial maneuvers here. I'm going to try and do an aileron roll. I don't want to call it the wrong thing here. There we go. Now, this plane is definitely not made for crazy tricks or anything. It's pretty heavy, especially weighted down on the bottom there because of those pontoons. But, I mean, you can see, though, this thing is just super easy to fly, just like all the other planes. But let's try and land this thing now. So this is the tricky part here, guys. We need to press this. There we go. And, okay, we just went completely underwater. We're bouncing, and there we go, guys. Look at that. Nice soft landing. Overall, though, this float plane is absolutely fantastic. Tons of fun to fly, and definitely even more fun because of the fact that we're actually bobbing on water now. But now, guys, it's time to move on to the most epic plane I think I've ever made in Scrap Mechanic. It is the Seaplane. So, next up, we've got this massive Seaplane. Now, I want to ask you guys, down in the comments, do you know what this plane is from? It is a Conwing L16. It is not a real plane. It is from a TV show. I'll give you a hint. It's from an old cartoon that I used to love. So maybe you know. If you do, then definitely let me know down in the comments, guys, because overall, I am so happy with the design of this plane, the way it turned out, and I gotta say, this is probably my new favorite plane in Scrap Mechanic, because it's combining the wing mod with the buoyancy mod, and it is just beautiful. So of course, though, we are going to just pop it up on the lift as high as we can go, and we're gonna spawn it just like that, and there we go, guys. Now, here you can see that the buoyancy is, in fact, a little off. I think it has to do with the weight balancing. I tried to fix it. There are some solutions, but none that really kept the aesthetic design of the plane. So this is kind of what we're left with the bobbing here. You can see that it's not quite level. Some of the tail kind of dips underwater a little bit as well, but nonetheless, it still flies and it takes off just fine. So to get into this seat, though, you just got to go underneath it right here like this, guys, and you press your key, and there we go. And this is the view from above here, guys. You can see that the side little pontoons are, in fact, submerged completely, and there is the belly of the plane kind of dipping in the back there. But I mean, overall, I'm still super happy with this. I'm sure the more I make using these mods, the better I will become. So like most of the planes using this mod, I have them set up the same way with the flight controls, guys. You can see we have A and D set up right there. All the way back here, we even have 1 and 2. You can't see because it is underwater right now. The 3 key will give us our forward propulsion, and of course, guys, the 4 and the 5 key back here. Look at that. We even actually have Yaw Control on this plane right here, so it's very useful actually for something large like this. Alright, so it's time for takeoff now, guys. All you have to do with this one, though, it's a lot easier than the small float plane. You just press 3. There we go, guys. Look at that. The blades start to spin, and we will eventually pick up speed here. And look at that, guys. We are starting to come out of the water. And there we go. We now have flight. So I better get into a good angle here. And look at this, guys. This plane is so much fun to fly. It's actually massive. I think this is the biggest plane that I have made so far using the wing mod in Scrap Mechanic. And I am just so happy with the way it turned out. Like, just look at these controls here, guys. It flies so smooth, so easy, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, I want to show you guys, though, what it's like to use the Yaw Control. So let's just kind of give ourselves a little bit of room here in the world. And there we go. We'll level out right now. And here we go. I'm just going to kind of change the angle a little bit. So if I press 4 like this, look at this, guys. You can see the entire plane starts to yaw left. and if I press it this way, you can start to see the entire plane is yawing to the right. And now, it is a pretty subtle movement. It's not always the most noticeable thing, but it definitely does aid in that fine-tuned flight control. So I'm just gonna slowly bank around back towards the center of the map. But I'm gonna mention, guys, I'm sure you can probably agree with me, this camera angle is just terrible, isn't it? So, I mean, we can definitely get into some first-person flying right here, like this. It's not always the easiest to fly in first person. I do personally really enjoy first-person flight, though. I think it's a lot more immersive for the experience. But nonetheless, though, this thing is definitely easy to fly. And speaking of camera angles, though, if we zoom all the way out, you can see that this is still not a very good camera angle for flying, guys. So why don't we just actually land this thing into the water, and I'm going to show you guys a much better plane that I've made. So let's just kind of kill the engines here, and we are just going to kind of slowly drop down. There we go, guys. Look at that. We are now bouncing and skidding into the water. I think we'll try a better landing next time. But I'm going to spawn the better camera float plane. Alright, so this is the better camera seaplane, guys. You can actually see if we zoom in, I'm way back here in some light blocks, and this is actually because if we zoom out all the way, look at this, guys. Look at the amount of room we can actually see now. So this is the better way to fly. Hopefully, maybe one day, the Scrap Mechanic devs will add an option to zoom out farther. And speaking of the devs, maybe they could even make some bigger maps one day, because I'm kind of sick of having to fly in circles constantly. I'd like to be able to, you know, maybe have a bigger map with some actual room to fly. Alright, so let's just kind of do a couple little aerial maneuvers here. I think this thing is actually the most fun to fly through those little cliffs and canyons there. So let's just kind of ease back around, and we're going to make an approach to that section there. And of course, mentioning, guys, look at how much of this plane we can now see. Before, we could barely even see the tail, and now we can see both of them, as well as all of the wing. It's so good. Alright, so I see the islands up ahead. Let's try our best to kind of get as close as we can to that little canyon there. So we're going to make our approach here. Let's see. I don't know if this is actually going to work or not. This is probably going to be a huge mistake. I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn sharp enough. Here we go. We are starting the maneuver. Crossing over. Uh-oh. Okay, I don't think I'm going to fit. Uh-oh, this is dangerous. This is not good. Oh, and that is how you crash a plane, guys. And there we go. This is what it looks like if you land upside down, in case you were wondering. Alright, so this is probably the deepest section of this little ocean map right here, and I'm actually pretty curious right now, guys. What's going to happen to this plane if we spawn it, like, down at the complete depths of this place? So let's remove the lift. There we go, and there the plane goes. Wow. It's like it was flying for a second. Did you see that? Oh, boy. Here it comes back in the water. It's still pointing straight up and down, which is actually quite impressive. And is it going to go backwards? It looks like it's going to flip over. Yep, and it has flipped over upside down. Alright, so that massive seaplane is actually not very good for aerial maneuvers, so I figured why not spawn in the little float plane one more time here, because that canyon is just begging to be flown around. So let's get this up in the air here. We're gonna loop all the way back around to the canyon zone, and okay, you know what? I'm gonna enter right here, guys. This looks like the perfect spot. Oh no, I'm touching the water. Okay, here we go. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Yes, no, okay, wow, okay, so I can turn a lot sharper than I thought I could. Let me try that one more time. Alright, here we go. It's Canyon Run. Attempt number 2 in this small little float plane here. Let's see if we can do this. Alright, I've got much better control this time, I think. Here we go. We're going to approach the canyon. This looks way better than before. And tight turn. Oh, beautiful. Okay, I don't have the ability to turn back quick enough. You know what? I made the first turn, at least. Alright, so that is going to be the video for today, guys. I sure hope you did enjoy some more of this buoyancy gameplay, as well as the wing mod. These seaplanes were tons of fun to make. So if you guys did enjoy these builds, or if you did enjoy the video, then let me know by hitting that like button. It'll certainly help the channel out. Let me know down in the comments, guys, if there's anything else that you would like to see. And also, do you recognize this plane? So, of course, if you want to see more Endless Scrap Mechanic, guys, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Maybe even consider turning on notifications so you can get the latest and the craziest coming from me in Scrap Mechanic. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. So, bye for now.